Stop scrolling for a second and listen carefully, because what I'm about to say will change how you think about yourself, your habits, and your future. Most people think growth is dramatic, overnight success, sudden wealth, instant confidence. That's a lie. The reality is far more powerful, far more shocking, and far more within your control than you've ever realized. What separates people who live ordinary lives from people who become unstoppable is not talent. It's not luck. It's not even motivation. It's the small, invisible choices you make every single day that nobody notices. The problem is, most people quit before anything happens. They expect results immediately, and when life doesn't deliver, they settle, they complain, they get distracted. But the truth is, real transformation is quiet. It happens under the surface. It happens in the moments you think nobody is watching. It happens while you're tired, frustrated, doubting yourself, and yet you keep showing up. And here's the part almost no one tells you: the first 30, 60, even 90 days of effort may feel invisible. You may not feel different, you may not look different, and no one may notice. That's when most people fail. But if you stay disciplined, if you improve just 1% every day, if you honor your promises to yourself even when it's uncomfortable, your life will change in ways so dramatic that it feels like magic. But it's not magic. It's a system, a process. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how to use that system to rebuild your life, reshape your identity, and finally become the person you've been pretending to be in your mind. If you're serious, watch every second, because what comes next will shock you, challenge you, and push you to act in ways you've never dared before. Let me slow this down for a moment, because this is where most people misunderstand change. When you hear small, daily actions, your mind automatically dismisses them. You think they're too weak, too insignificant, too slow to matter. You think real change has to feel intense, dramatic, exhausting. That belief alone is what keeps people stuck year after year, repeating the same promises with different dates on the calendar. The truth is, your life is not the result of a few major decisions. It's the result of thousands of tiny choices stacked on top of each other. What you do when you wake up, what you reach for when you're tired, what you tell yourself when something doesn't go your way. These moments don't feel important, which is exactly why they control your future. A 1% improvement doesn't demand heroics. It doesn't ask you to become someone else overnight. It asks you to become slightly better than yesterday in a way that is sustainable. And sustainability is the most underestimated force in personal growth. Anyone can push hard for a week. Very few people can show up with quiet discipline for months. Here's the uncomfortable reality: most people don't fail because they aim too low. They fail because they aim too high and burn out. They set goals that require a complete personality change instead of behaviors that require small adjustments. When the effort becomes unbearable, they don't lower the goal, they abandon the process entirely. That cycle repeats until disappointment becomes identity. Small actions work because they bypass resistance. Your brain doesn't fight a 5-minute walk the way it fights an hour at the gym. It doesn't panic at reading one page the way it panics at finishing an entire book. Psychologically, this matters. When resistance is low, consistency becomes possible. And consistency is where change actually happens. What you repeat, you reinforce. What you reinforce, you become. Every small action casts a vote for the person you are becoming. One vote doesn't decide an election, but enough votes, over time, make the outcome inevitable. When you improve 1% a day, you are not chasing outcomes. You are shaping identity, and identity is what determines how you act when no one is watching. Think about this carefully. People don't fail because they lack information. They fail because their habits are stronger than their intentions. You can know exactly what you should do and still not do it. That's not a knowledge problem. That's a behavioral problem, and behavior is changed through repetition, not inspiration. 1% improvement rewires how you see effort. Instead of asking, "Is this enough to change my life?" you ask, "Is this enough to keep my word today?" That shift is subtle, but it's everything. When your standard becomes keeping promises to yourself, your self-respect begins to grow. And when self-respect grows, discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like alignment. This is where philosophy meets psychology. The ancient idea of character was built on repeated action, not emotional states. You are not what you intend, you are what you practice. Each small improvement is practice in becoming someone who follows through, someone who doesn't need to feel motivated to act, someone who understands that progress is earned, not announced. There's another reason small daily actions are powerful, and it's one people rarely talk about. They create momentum, not the loud kind that looks impressive online, but the internal kind that changes how you move through the world. When you do a little every day, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, should I? And start saying, this is just what I do. That's when discipline becomes automatic. Momentum doesn't start with confidence. Confidence is a byproduct. Momentum starts with movement. One step creates the next. One completed action lowers the psychological barrier to the next one. Over time, effort feels lighter, not because the task is easier, but because you are stronger. Most people underestimate how much their environment responds to consistency. When you show up a little better every day, opportunities start appearing that didn't exist before. People respond differently. Conversations change. Your tolerance for chaos decreases. Your standards rise quietly. This isn't magic, it's cause and effect. What's dangerous is that 1% decline works the same way. Skipping once becomes skipping often. Excuses become habits. Neglect compounds just as powerfully as improvement. The direction you move in, even slightly, matters more than how fast you move. Over time, small negative choices create a life that feels heavy and out of control. Small positive choices create a life that feels intentional. This is why waiting for motivation is such a mistake. Motivation is emotional. 1% improvement is structural. It doesn't rely on how you feel, it relies on what you do. When you anchor your progress to emotion, it disappears the moment life becomes uncomfortable. When you anchor it to behavior, it survives stress, doubt, and fatigue. And make no mistake, it will feel boring at times. But that's not a flaw in the process. That's the price of mastery. Boredom is often the signal that you are doing something right long enough for it to work. The people who succeed are not the ones who avoid boredom. They are the ones who don't let boredom talk them out of consistency. There will be days when your 1% feels meaningless. Days when nothing seems to change. Those days matter more than the ones where progress feels exciting. Because that's when you're training something deeper than skill. You're training reliability. You're proving to yourself that you can be trusted. That inner trust becomes the foundation for every other improvement in your life. Eventually, something shifts, not all at once, quietly. You notice you react differently. You recover faster. You hesitate less. You stop needing external validation to stay on track. That's the compound effect revealing itself. From the outside, it looks sudden. From the inside, it feels earned. So don't ask whether 1% is impressive. Ask whether it is repeatable. Ask whether it is honest. Ask whether it moves you slightly closer to the person you respect, because over time, those small answers build a life that no longer depends on willpower alone. And here's the closing truth to sit with. You don't change your life by doing something extraordinary once. You change your life by doing something ordinary, consistently, until it becomes who you are. Now let's talk about the thing everyone keeps waiting for and almost no one truly understands. Motivation. People treat motivation like a prerequisite, as if it's something that must arrive before action is allowed. They say, once I feel motivated, I'll start. But that way of thinking quietly hands control of your life over to your moods. And moods are unstable. They change with sleep, stress, praise, criticism, and convenience. If your progress depends on how you feel, your progress will always be fragile. Discipline works differently. Discipline does not ask for emotional permission. It doesn't care if you're inspired or tired, confident or doubtful. Discipline is simply the decision to act according to your values instead of your feelings. That's why discipline builds identity while motivation only creates moments. Most people don't lack ambition, they lack self-trust. They've broken too many promises to themselves, so when they say, "I'll start tomorrow," their mind doesn't believe them. Over time, this erodes confidence. Not the loud kind of confidence you see online, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you will follow through even when no one is watching. Every small promise you keep repairs that trust, and every promise you break damages it. This is not abstract psychology, it's lived experience. Your brain keeps score. When you repeatedly say you'll do something and don't, your mind learns that your words have no authority. Eventually, even your best intentions sound empty to you. Discipline reverses that damage one action at a time. When you do what you said you would do, especially when it's inconvenient, you send a powerful signal inward. You teach yourself that your decisions matter. That signal changes how you speak to yourself, how you handle pressure, and how seriously you take your own goals. This is why discipline is not about force or harshness. It's about alignment. When your actions match your values, internal conflict decreases. You stop arguing with yourself, you stop negotiating, life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. And clarity reduces anxiety more effectively than motivation ever could. There's a philosophical layer here that's worth understanding. Identity is not something you declare, it's something you demonstrate. You don't become disciplined by calling yourself disciplined. You become disciplined by behaving that way consistently. Identity follows evidence. Your mind believes what it sees you do, not what you say you want. This is why small, repeatable actions are so important. They create evidence. One disciplined action might feel insignificant, but it adds to a growing body of proof. Over time, that proof reshapes your self-image. You begin to see yourself as someone who shows up, someone who handles discomfort, someone who finishes what they start. And once identity shifts, behavior becomes easier. You're no longer forcing yourself to act against who you think you are. You're acting in alignment with it. This is where people misunderstand discipline. They think it's about grinding forever. In reality, discipline is front-loaded. It's harder at the beginning, when identity and behavior don't yet match. As they align, effort decreases. Motivation, on the other hand, is unreliable because it's reactive. It depends on external triggers. A speech, a quote, a feeling. When those disappear, so does the drive. Discipline is proactive. It creates its own momentum. It doesn't wait for the perfect conditions. It functions in imperfect ones. Another hard truth is this: motivation often disguises avoidance. People wait to feel ready because readiness feels safe. Acting without motivation feels risky. It exposes you to failure, embarrassment, and self-judgment. Discipline accepts those risks as part of growth. It understands that progress requires discomfort, not confidence. This is why disciplined people often appear calm under pressure. They are not immune to fear or doubt. They are simply practiced at acting in their presence. They don't interpret discomfort as a stop sign. They interpret it as a signal that they are doing something meaningful. Discipline also simplifies decision-making. When your actions are guided by values, you spend less mental energy debating every choice. You don't ask, "Do I feel like it today?" You ask, "Is this aligned with who I'm trying to become?" That shift conserves energy and reduces stress. It turns discipline into a form of self-respect rather than self-control. Psychologically, this matters because willpower is limited. If you rely on motivation and constant decision-making, you exhaust yourself. Discipline creates routines that remove the need for constant choice. You don't decide every day whether to show up. You just do. That consistency builds stability, and stability supports growth. Over time, disciplined behavior compounds into confidence, not the kind that needs approval, but the kind that comes from knowing you can handle yourself. That confidence changes how you communicate, how you set boundaries, how you respond to challenges. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. And here's something rarely said: discipline is an act of kindness to your future self. Every small disciplined action is a way of saying, I care about who I'm becoming. It's delayed gratification, yes, but it's also delayed relief. You reduce future stress by handling things now. You reduce future regret by acting today. When people say they want discipline, what they often mean is they want the results of discipline without the process. But the process is the point. The discomfort is not a flaw. It's the training ground where character is built. You will not always feel capable. You will not always feel clear. Discipline is what carries you through those moments without letting them define you. It gives you something solid to stand on when emotions fluctuate. So if you're waiting to feel motivated, consider this instead. Act first. Keep one small promise today. Let action generate belief. Let belief strengthen identity. Let identity guide behavior. Because in the end, motivation fades, circumstances change, and emotions rise and fall. But the person you become through disciplined action stays with you. And here's the thought to carry with you. You don't become disciplined by feeling strong. You become disciplined by acting with integrity when strength is absent. Let's face it, most people quit long before the results appear. They put in effort for days, weeks, or even months. And when the change doesn't show immediately, they convince themselves it's not working. That's the trap. The truth is, growth almost always happens quietly, under the surface, before it becomes visible to anyone, including yourself. And this invisible work is what separates ordinary people from those who achieve extraordinary things. You see, our culture celebrates instant results. We scroll through social media, watching transformations that seem overnight. We see someone lift heavier weights, make more money, or gain followers in months, and we compare ourselves. We forget that behind every visible result is a long period of invisible, often unglamorous effort. Those who succeed quietly, steadily, every day, accumulate advantages that aren't obvious at first. Momentum builds when no one is looking, and it compounds silently until one day it explodes into what the world calls luck or talent. The human mind struggles to value what it cannot see. We measure success by results because they're tangible, measurable, and satisfying. But personal growth doesn't follow that simple formula. Character, skill, confidence, resilience, all these qualities develop under the surface. They develop when you choose to act even when no one is applauding. They develop in the moments you repeat small actions that feel meaningless. They develop in boredom, discomfort, and the monotony of daily commitment. Think about it carefully. The person who improves 1% every day may not notice a change after a month. The scale may not move, the bank account may not grow, and the compliments may not come. But internally, your mind, your habits, your nervous system are learning something profound. You can trust yourself. You can show up. You can endure. And that self-trust is the foundation of every achievement you will ever experience. One of the reasons people give up so quickly is because they confuse effort with results. They expect the world to reward them immediately for showing up. Life doesn't work that way. Progress compounds like interest in a bank account, but unlike money, it's not visible day by day. You may plant seeds and water them diligently, but the roots grow underground first. You don't see the growth, yet it's happening. And when the time comes, the leaves emerge so quickly it feels like magic. There's a psychological principle here. Humans need feedback, but the feedback loop for personal growth is delayed. Immediate gratification is easy to understand. We like results we can see and measure. Delayed gratification requires patience, trust, and faith in the process. This is why most people quit. They can't tolerate uncertainty. They can't see the invisible effort paying off. They need proof now, and the universe doesn't provide it instantly. Invisible growth also requires humility. It demands that you act without recognition, that you keep improving even when nobody notices. That's uncomfortable. Our egos want applause, likes, validation. They want others to acknowledge our effort. Discipline, consistency, and patience teach you to derive satisfaction from the process itself rather than the praise of others. This is what separates the people who endure from the people who fizzle out. There is also a philosophical dimension to this invisible growth. Life is not about the moments everyone sees. Life is about the accumulation of choices you make when no one is watching. Your character is not formed in victories and public achievements. It is formed in quiet persistence, in self-control, in repeated acts of integrity and effort that feel inconsequential at the time. You are sculpting yourself in silence, and the final work will astonish those who never saw the process. Now, consider the times you stopped short because results weren't immediate. Think about the projects you abandoned, the goals you postponed, the habits you failed to form. Those moments were not failures. They were lessons about patience. They were lessons about the discomfort of unseen growth. And if you study them closely, you'll notice a pattern. Growth was always happening, just not on your schedule. Invisible growth teaches a different relationship with time. It teaches that consistency matters more than intensity, that small, deliberate actions matter more than sporadic. See bursts of effort. It shows that patience is not passive. It's active engagement with a process you cannot fully observe yet. It turns the ordinary act of showing up every day into an extraordinary form of mastery. Most people are impatient because they fear missing out or fear failure. They want results because they equate results with validation. But the people who excel understand that true progress is not measured externally, it's measured internally. Your mindset, your habits, your resilience, your ability to navigate discomfort, these are the things that truly grow under the surface. They are invisible until they manifest as competence, confidence, or influence. And here's the paradox. When growth is invisible, it feels fragile. You might doubt yourself. You might wonder if your efforts mean anything. That is exactly when persistence matters most. That is exactly when the invisible work compounds quietly. The moment you continue despite doubt, the moment you honor your commitment when nobody is watching, that is the moment you build unshakable strength. Invisible growth also teaches adaptability. When you invest in small daily improvements, you become capable of handling unexpected challenges because your identity is no longer tied to immediate results. You learn to trust your process, your skills, and your resilience. You stop needing external validation to prove your worth. You develop internal stability that allows you to face setbacks, obstacles, and failures without losing momentum. The compounding effect of invisible growth cannot be overstated. One small improvement may seem inconsequential, but repeated daily over weeks and months, it becomes exponential. Your thinking becomes clearer, your habits more automatic, your decision-making sharper. People may notice a sudden transformation, and they will call it luck or genius. You will know the truth. It is the result of quiet, persistent, invisible effort that no one else saw. It is important to realize that invisible growth is not passive. It requires intention. You must commit to the actions, however small, that move you closer to your goals. You must act consistently even when results are delayed or invisible. You must resist the urge to quit when progress feels slow. The discomfort of waiting is the price of mastery. The invisible work is what prepares you for visible success. So the next time you feel discouraged because your life hasn't changed dramatically overnight, remember this: your internal transformation is unfolding quietly. Your habits are solidifying. Your self-discipline is growing. Your confidence is forming. You are building the foundation that will support extraordinary achievement. Invisible growth is working for you even when you cannot see it, and that is exactly why it is so powerful. One of the most important lessons of invisible growth is that it teaches gratitude for the process itself. When you appreciate small steps, you reduce the need for external validation. You learn to trust your effort, and that trust becomes the engine of consistent progress. The more you invest in invisible growth, the less you rely on the approval of others to measure your worth. This internal validation is far more durable than any applause or recognition. Finally, invisible growth transforms your perspective on success. You no longer measure life by immediate results. LTs, by applause, or by comparison with others. You measure it by how faithfully you show up for yourself, by the consistency of your effort, and by your willingness to endure discomfort for the sake of growth. You realize that the most important progress is always invisible until it becomes undeniable. So remember this: the work you do today, even when it feels unseen and insignificant, is shaping your future. Your habits, your discipline, your quiet persistence are all building something much greater than the fleeting results you chase. Growth happens underground, beneath the surface, away from eyes that demand proof. And one day, without warning, it will emerge unstoppable, undeniable, and irreversible. And here is the closing truth to carry with you: the most powerful transformations are invisible at first, and those who endure the unseen work quietly become unstoppable when the world finally sees the results.